Hi angels, it's Hailey Reese, and for today's video, I'm going to be bringing you guys yet another real life case, except this case was actually solved 23 years later. It's been a while since I've dove into true crime here on my channel, and I get a lot of requests from you guys asking me to dive into different cases, and today's case was very, very highly requested, so I am so excited to be talking about the Carlina White abduction. Before I get into today's video though, I would just very quickly like to thank today's video sponsor, June's Journey. June's Journey is a completely free hidden object mystery game that takes you through a thrilling murder mystery story set in the 1920s. June Parker is on a quest to solve the murder of her sister and uncover her family's secrets. This game is so relaxing yet so captivating, which is the type of game that I like to play because I love games that help me to unwind and relax, but I also love games that are thought-provoking and challenging and leave you wanting to know what happens next. June's Journey is available on both your phones and your tablets for any of you who want to unwind with a chilling murder mystery that both relaxes you and keeps you captivated. Make sure to click the link down in my description, download June's Journey for free, and get to playing. So thank you so much to June's Journey for sponsoring today's video, and without further ado, let's get into this real life mystery that took decades to solve. So a couple years ago, I saw this movie called Abducted, the Carlina White story. It was a movie based on the real life events of a abducted newborn baby who would grow up with her kidnapper as her mother. So in 1987, Joy White and her boyfriend, Carl Tyson, found out that Joy was pregnant at the young age of 16. Now obviously when you first find out that you're pregnant at such a young age, it kind of comes as a shock, but the more that Joy sat with the idea, she began to become so excited and over the moon about having this baby and felt like she was going to do the absolute best she could to become the best mother she possibly could. On July 15th, 1987 in Harlem Hospital, Joy gave birth to a beautiful baby girl whom they would name Carlina White. Now, Carlina was just 19 days old when Joy realized that she was really sick. On August 4th, 1987, Joy and Carl would take Carlina to the hospital with a fever of 104 degrees Fahrenheit. They would quickly learn that baby Carlina had an infection due to swallowing fluids during childbirth. Doctors knew that they would need to keep Carlina in order to put her on some antibiotic treatments via intravenous, and they really didn't know how long they were going to have her there on these IV fluids and IV antibiotics, so they broke the news to Joy and Carl that they were going to have to keep baby Carlina at the hospital in order to treat her to the best of their ability and cure this infection. Now, Joy did not take this news very well. I mean, her baby is only 19 days old, she's sick, and now they have to keep her at the hospital. She began breaking down and crying and was dealing with a lot of mixed emotions as far as leaving Carlina at the hospital. It was at this time that a woman dressed in white, appearing to be a nurse, came up to Joy and began to comfort her, reassuring her that everything was going to be okay, and really and truly calmed down Joy's nerves. Joy and Carl headed back to the house to get some rest while baby Carlina got hooked up to IV fluids and IV antibiotics and was getting treated at the hospital. It was shortly after this that detectives would show up at the home to break the news that baby Carlina had been stolen from the hospital. The baby had actually disappeared from the hospital early morning around 2 a.m. during the shift change. And horrifyingly enough, the hospital did have surveillance, however, it wasn't working at that time. Carlina had been receiving IV antibiotics when between 2:30 a.m. and 3:55 a.m. someone removed the IV that was giving her the antibiotics and abducted her from the hospital. So Joy and Carl rushed over to the hospital with detectives, and right away the search for baby Carlina began. But nobody really knew where exactly to start, as nobody had seen anything suspicious or recognized any peculiar behavior around the time of Carlina's abduction. It was then, as Joy's mind was racing, that she began to wonder if perhaps the woman in the white outfit that appeared to be a nurse could have possibly been her baby's abductor. It was then that witnesses came forward claiming that they had seen this strange woman that Joy had described hanging around the pediatric department prior to Carlina's disappearance. The woman had actually been seen around the pediatric department and in the hospital for 3 weeks prior to baby Carlina being stolen from the hospital. Unfortunately, other than the description given of this specific woman, there were no leads, there was no real evidence, and that baby girl was just gone. Joy and Carl would actually wind up suing Harlem Hospital for lack of security, and in 1992 they would settle for $720,000 that they would be putting into a trust account for Carlina, as they had a lot of hope and faith that Carlina would be returning to them and that this money could go towards her future. What the family didn't know at this time was that their sweet daughter, Carlina White, had actually been stolen by a woman named Ann Petway. Now, Ann was actually in a relationship with a drug dealer whom she tried to get pregnant with on multiple occasions, and in desperation of her wanting to be pregnant with his child so badly, she resorted to the option of stealing a baby that was not her own. Now, Ann had actually went away for a few months, away from her home, away from her family, but before she left, she had claimed to be pregnant. So when Ann returned with a sweet little baby, newborn girl, nobody even batted an eye as to question whose baby this was, as they just believed that it was, in fact, Ann's daughter. Ann would claim that this baby girl was her own and name her Nedra, who would go on to be called Nettie for short. Now, growing up, Carlina, now named Nedra, would actually be raised by primarily her grandmother. She would grow up and eventually get a boyfriend of her own who she would fall so deeply in love with. In 2005, Carlina found out that she was pregnant with a baby of her very own and was super excited with the news. However, Carlina actually didn't have any health insurance, and in order to apply for health insurance, she would need to get her social security number and her birth certificate. Any time that Carlina would ask Ann for her legal documents, she would always stall or push it to a different day, which Carlina began to grow incredibly suspicious of, wondering why she would never be able to provide her with her birth certificate or her social security number. A very confused Carlina would take things into her own hands and begin rummaging through all of Ann's things, trying to find any of her legal documents. It was then she would find what appeared to be her birth certificate, and she would go to take it down in order to start the process of getting her health insurance. It was then that they would tell her that this was a fake. It was not a real birth certificate at all. DNA tests would confirm that Carlina was not biologically Ann's daughter. But Ann would make up this whole elaborate story telling Carlina that she had been abandoned by a drug dealer and that she took her in as her very own and she loved her exactly like that. And other than that, Ann did not give her any other information. So unfortunately, Carlina felt that without any information as to who her real birth parents are, it was nothing but a dead end. Carlina felt as though she had no choice but just to move on with her life, holding on to the fact that there had been a secret all along and she would probably never know who her real parents were. On May 6th, 2005, Carlina gave birth to a beautiful baby girl named Somani. In 2009, Carlina was working really hard and raising her beautiful daughter, but in the back of her mind, she still had all of these questions as for the truth and who her real parents were. She began trying to read as many articles as she could and try to research as many babies as she possibly could that had either been abducted or abandoned around the time of her birth. It was then that Carlina would come across the Site National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. It was there that she found a picture of what appeared to look just like her as a baby, but not only just like her, it also appeared to look just like her daughter. And this baby had been born around the time that she had been. She called the hotline, she shared her story, she gave as much information as she could, and claimed that she felt this baby could possibly be her. On January 4th, 2011, Joy White received the phone call that her missing daughter had been found. She was able to speak with her daughter and they would be reunited after 23 years apart. Upon Joy getting to know her daughter and really trying to find out how her life had been, she found out that Carlina was not always treated kindly by Anne. This really infuriated her because all along the only thing that she had hoped throughout this entire process was that if she couldn't get her daughter back, that hopefully her daughter was in the best home environment she possibly could be. So when she found out that Anne did not always treat Carlina right, it infuriated her beyond belief, and she really wanted Anne imprisoned for everything that she'd done. On the other hand, though, Carlina really struggled with the fact that she would be the reason that Anne would go to prison. Which in hindsight, of course it's not her fault. She's really not the root or the cause of it. But this was somebody who was her mother for over 20 years. And now all of a sudden, because she went digging and found out she had been abducted, her mother of her whole entire life, who she believed was her mother, was going to face jail time. This really put a strain on Joy and Carlina's relationship because they just couldn't see eye to eye on that. On January 23rd, 2011, Anne turned herself in. However, she pleaded not guilty to the charges. However, this would later change. Anne was sentenced to 12 years in prison. Now, it is said that there was a big misunderstanding between Carlina and her birth parents as far as what had happened with the money that was set to be Carlina's. Many people believe they had a big falling out over this money, while Carlina claimed that that was a big misunderstanding and there was no falling out over money. With that being said, while Carlina White is her legal name on her documentation, Carlina decided to go back to being called Nettie, because it was neither the name that her biological parents gave her, nor a name that Anne had given her, but rather a name that she had given herself, a nickname that she had given herself, and she felt like that's what she identified as. It is said that Carlina has distanced from her birth family. However, she feels at peace having the closure and getting to know who they really were. As far as what I think of this whole entire case, I think it is so sad that a family was robbed of 23 years with their child because somebody else felt it was their right to steal a baby. I'm turning 23 in the next couple of days, and to be entirely honest with you, I don't know how I would feel if I woke up tomorrow and found out that my entire family was not really my family, that I had been abducted, my name wasn't Hailey, and that I was a stranger to my real parents who have never given up hope on me. It would put you in such an uncomfortable predicament between what you've known and who you truly are to your core. And I just can't even begin to understand or sympathize with what Carlina or Nettie must be going through. I'm so thankful that they were able to piece together what had actually happened to her and give both Joy and Carl the closure as to what happened to their daughter, but that will never give back the 23 years that they missed out on because of somebody else's doings. Well, you guys, that is the case of Carlina White, who was stolen as an infant and reunited with her family 23 years later. What do you guys think of this particular case? What do you think of the entire situation? Please, please, please let me know in the comments below, and I will be reading through them, because with controversial cases like this, I always love to hear everybody's opinions and kind of see what you guys think of the case. Thank you once again to June's Journey for sponsoring today's video, and that is it for today's video. If you guys have any requests for any true crime cases or paranormal cases that you want to see me cover, make sure to drop your comments down below and let me know that as well. And that is it for today's video. If you guys are new to my channel, or you are just not yet subscribed but you do enjoy my videos, make sure you go ahead and click that subscribe button, and please give this video a big thumbs up if you did enjoy it. I work really hard on these videos, so it means the world when you guys show me that you enjoy them. Remember, my loves, do all things with kindness, and until next time, I love you guys.